Jesse Minter rounded out the coordinator positions on his Baltimore Ravens staff, and he did it with a familiar face.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and now the #1 sports podcast network. Appreciate everybody for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. We have 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage and content. Thanks so much to all the everydayers, the first-time listeners. If you're somewhere in the middle, thank you as well. On today's show, Jesse Minter hired his final coordinator. Special teams coordinator was the position, and we'll talk about the familiar face that it is in the first part of the show. And in the second part of the show, we did do a full episode with Qadry Ismail, former Baltimore Ravens wide receiver and Super Bowl champion, but I'm going to talk about the Ravens special teams coordinator in the first part of the show on my own, but then we'll get into our conversation with Q, talking about former Ravens DB having some strong words for the Ravens coaching staff, the former coaching staff, and how they utilize the specific defensive back. And then finally, we'll talk about Tyler Linderbaum and the comments made by Clint Kubiak of the Raiders and why it adds even more of a sense of urgency to get a deal done with Tyler Linderbaum. Hopefully that coming sooner rather than later or at all for the Ravens. So lots to talk about on today's show. So before we get into our conversation with you in the second and third parts of the show, we have to talk about Anthony Levine Sr. in the first part of the show because he is your newest Ravens special teams coordinator. And this is an awesome move. I mean, obviously how this role opened up was John Harbaugh goes to New York and Chris Horton ends up following John Harbaugh to New York as their special teams guy. Anthony Levine has been with the Ravens for the last couple of years as a coach for them. He was their assistant special teams coach in 2025. Now, in between his stint in 2022 and 2025, he spent 2 seasons in Tennessee as an assistant special teams coach as well. So once he retired, he actually got to start in Baltimore. So the order of operations here for Levine's coaching side, 2022, he was a player personnel and coaching assistant. Then he went to Tennessee for 2 years as that assistant special teams coach, then came back to the Ravens as an assistant special teams coach. Now he's Baltimore's special teams coordinator. This is super well-deserved. Couple of his former teammates gave their congratulations. Geno Stone, who obviously is over in Cincinnati, he took to social media and said, quote, "Man, so happy for my bro. Showed me everything I needed to know to be a pro in this league." Tony Jefferson also sent a message of congratulations saying, "Let's go to my bro. You worked your butt off for this moment, bro. Proud of you, gang." So Levine's really well liked, it feels like. I've obviously spent a lot of years in Baltimore as a player from 2012 through 2021, a diamond in the rough. Levine was awesome over the course of his career as that special teams ace and as a dime back. I mean, he was listed as a safety, but played a lot of different roles for them on defense. Didn't obviously have a ton of snaps on defense. Finished his career with 146 games at 149 tackles. He had a forced fumble, a fumble recovery, 4 fumble recoveries. Actually, I'm selling him short. He had 4 fumble recoveries along with that forced fumble. And he did have 2 interceptions over the course of his career. But again, he made his money being a special teams ace for this team. Got the nickname Co-Cap from Albert McClellan, who was Cap. So, hey, you know what? The Ravens have that assistant special teams coach opening now. Well, bring Cap on back. Get the Co-Cap and Cap duo reunited. Albert McClellan, hey, that'd be something. I don't even know what Albert McClellan is up to these days, if I'm being honest with you, but I think that it'd be something pretty funny if that were to happen. So I think for me, again, the continuity of the special teams group is big. You know, I'm sure this is a hire that's very popular within the locker room, and I'm very curious. I'm going to try to get Nick Moore, Ravens long snapper, on here at some point, whether it be the regular show or the squad show, to talk about it, because I assume Nick is very happy with this hire. So I think that we are going to need to get Nick on here to talk about that some more. But you now have a staff in Baltimore. It's a young staff now. Declan Doyle is your offensive coordinator. Anthony Weaver is your defensive coordinator. And Anthony Levine is your special teams coordinator. It's a youth movement in Baltimore right now. And honestly, I like that. So I think with Levine building up his coaching resume, being around the game still, having spent so much time with the Ravens, still knowing a ton of guys in that building, obviously having played with a decent amount of the guys in the building as well. And we have to remember that Anthony Levine actually played under Jesse Minter. I mean, Levine and Minter worked very closely together here, with Minter being a defensive assistant in 2017 through 2018. And then he was the assistant defensive backs coach in 2019 and the defensive backs coach in 2020. So Levine was there throughout the entirety of Minter's first stint with the Ravens. So there is that familiarity there, and I'm sure that probably helped. So I'm super pumped for Anthony Levine. I mean, he earned this. You know, it's something that it's a feel-good full circle moment. And again, it's not like Levine is coming back to Baltimore for this role. He was already with the team, but he went to Tennessee for a couple of years and got some more experience there, which I'm curious to see, you know, how this will all shape up. But again, in terms of just keeping protections the same, and, you know, there are going to be a lot of new things introduced to the Ravens this year in terms of different systems, different schemes, different everything, right? But a little bit of continuity never hurt. And again, I think for Chris Horton, and the special teams unit in general, I had been on the punt and kick coverages. That had been something that a lot of people had some frustrations with in terms of, right, where are the big returns? They're giving up some big returns. It got better last season. I think 2 years ago it was the worst of it. But, you know, I think with the improvement that we saw in Ways last year, it'll be big. And Randy Brown stays on, obviously, the kicking guru to help out with the special teams guys like Tyler Loop, Jordan Stoughton, and obviously Nick at the long snapper spot. So now Jesse Minter really only has a couple of spots left on his staff. I think wide receiver coach and that assistant special teams coach, that's all Cole Jackson over at Road Graders. He puts together every time a coach is hired a really, really good graphic of who is hired and what positions are left. And yeah, it looks like it is assistant special teams and then wide receiver coach. Everything else is all filled up. So, you know, I like this hire a lot, you know, with the special team stuff and the scheme and the system. That's what Baltimore's been known for, you know, with Jaire Rosberg and then even with Horton and whatnot, where I think, again, it did take a bit of a step down with Horton from Rosberg. But even still, I think Levine, with the player experience that he's had, and obviously being around the game since his retirement and being familiar with everything, I like this hire. So Minter continues to round out his staff, familiar faces, guys he has relationships with. This really, you know, it's a relationship business in the NFL. And obviously that John Harbaugh is the ultimate relationships guy, but Jesse Minter is certainly already building up his staff and really rounding it out. I mean, again, only a couple of positions left and stuff that you have with the big hires, coordinator wise, you're done with that. So I'm excited for this for sure. Coming up in the second part of the show, we'll get into our conversation with former Ravens receiver Qadry Ismail. First, talking about what a former Ravens defensive back had to say about a current Ravens defensive back and the former coaching in Baltimore. So be sure to stay tuned. Plenty coming up on the show. First, the show is brought to you by Indeed. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is when you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for. Trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posting on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs. Put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. If I needed to hire someone for this show, I'd go straight to Indeed and be very specific about what I need. Really experienced, not just a resume buzzword. Instead of struggling to get your job posting, Indeed sponsored jobs helps your listings stand out and reach quality candidates faster. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of the show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. Moving along, Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still here with you on this Wednesday edition of the show. Thanks so much for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. We have 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage and content here for you. Monday through Friday is our regular show, 6 a.m. Eastern time, but we also have bonus episodes on the weekend when there are headlines. We also have instant reactions after every single Ravens game and every single piece of Ravens big news. Plus, we have watch-alongs during the season, during games, as well as a Locked On Ravens squad show, which Q and I will have tonight along with Sam and Joku. We have that twice a week, Mondays and Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. And we also have the Everydayer Club. It is live on Locked On Ravens. So some extra add-on content like weekly Q&As, access to a Discord server. You got a text one-on-one chain with me, as well as ad-free episodes and a lot more. Link to that is in the description below, as well as on the Locked On website on the Locked On Ravens page. Let's now dive into our conversation, our conversation we had with Qadry Ismail. We're going to talk about now Rod Woodson, what he had to say about the former Ravens coaches and what they were doing with Marlon Humphrey. So we'll get into our interview with Qadry Ismail now. Q, it feels like we have officially gotten into this offseason. I know this is your favorite time of year. We get to talk about all the comp picks in the speculation. I mean, this is right up your alley, isn't it?
Mother of pearl. I've been dreading it. I've been sitting here saying, no, you're fine. But I will yield that this is now time for Kevin Oestreicher to do his awesome work of figuring out salary cap, figuring out the different cap hits of cap casualties, who should be what, where, when, why, and how with free agency. And then, of course, the draft, which I can boom, be mind blown with, oh my God, this guy's amazing. Only to look at him in OTAs and be like, okay, this guy's a mid-level guy. So, yes, let the fun of speculation begin.
Oh, yes, it is going to be a fun time, and we're going to have a lot of it here on this show. And we're not going to, we'll do, of course, some of it today, as I think now the offseason calls for. And we'll get into guys who the Ravens could bring in from outside the organization. And like you said, cue those draft picks. But I want to focus a little bit more today on some guys who are already in the organization or played on the team last year that there are some questions about whether they will be back or not. And Marlon Humphrey, Q, I think, is a really intriguing topic among Ravens fans right now in terms of whether he should come back or not, his situation last year. And look, it was a rough go for Marlon last year in multiple different aspects. And I think that when it came to some of the injury situations and the missed tackle situations and getting burnt in coverage, getting beat deep, there was a lot of like, okay, where is Marlon in terms of how good he is as a player right now? And that's a big topic. And so Bobby Trossett and Sarah Ellison, they do a great job over at the Vault. Bobby sat down with Rod Woodson, who I think you might know Rod Woods. I feel like you might be familiar with Rod Q, but Bobby sat down with Rod at the Super Bowl, and the topic of Marlon Humphrey came up, and the different decisions, I guess, that the Ravens used with Marlon in terms of his usage. And so I'll just read it off here. Rod said, quote, "I know this past year they went back to the old school way of playing him on the low hip, which I'm not a fan of. We got quite a few deep balls thrown against us because of that. I think Humphrey still has a lot still left in the tank. I just think asking him to play on the low hip put him in a bad spot, especially when you don't have the same foot speed as you had 4 or 5 years ago. That's a defensive coaching adjustment, a technical adjustment. It didn't benefit the group. Marlon had probably the worst part of it because his foot speed was not the same as it was a couple of years ago, which is natural." And Rod also talked about how he said, quote, "I think he can still play. If he can play on the outside shoulder like he did in previous years, he plays his best football." So I'm curious to your thoughts on Marlon and his situation and what Rod had to say, and whether you believe that the Ravens didn't utilize him properly based off of, again, like the natural progression of a football career based off where Marlon is today.
This is an easy one and a tough one because from Rod's perspective, not only as a Hall of Fame player, not only as a guy who has played both safety as well as corner, he's also coached it. He's coached in the National Football League and he's coached different techniques. He's a huge fan of play a touch high technique where you're on top of the receiver and you're going to really do some hard decelerating cuts to break up different mid-level to quick game routes. Whereas it helps you stay on top of the guy because now from a deep ball standpoint, yeah, you don't have to necessarily worry about getting beat deep unless he's just a speedster and he's running right by you. Rashid Shaheed is a guy that comes to mind as like a speedster that he just goes. When I look at the technique element of it all, and DeKalen, for example, when he was playing and matched up on him one-on-one, sure, I could see where he's saying, he kind of got that little bit of a trail technique. But I think from a jam aspect and trying to cover a guy, boy, here's where it gets difficult for me. I don't know how much he has left in the tank to play on the outside. And there were just times where, even in the Pittsburgh game, last game of the year, like some of his aggressiveness and his poor tackling really showed up in bad moments. And that's like an age thing. That's a self-preservation type thing. And that's where I'm like, boy, I just don't know. Maybe he's a safety, but if he's at safety, I mean, heck, you got enough safeties. You say play him at nickel safety, but what does that mean? You play him at nickel corner. Okay, you change up that technique, but then you got that. Hey, you got to play that run support as well. So I'm just on the fence with what we know of what he's shown and whether or not a simple technique change is going to make a big difference for Marlon Humphreys.
Yeah, and I still believe that Marlon is valuable and can play good football. I mean, again, I think his time is like being in top 5 or top 10 corner conversations is probably over, but that doesn't mean he can't be effective in a different role. And the safety conversation is one, I think. Obviously, Q, we've seen countless players transition from cornerback to safety, have success there. I mean, the most recent example, Jalen Ramsey did it in Pittsburgh this past year where he was cornerback and moved into more of a safety roamer type role for them. Would you feel like Marlon is a fit at safety, knowing that, look, his cap situation right now, he is on the books for a $26.2 million cap hit. Now, if they released him, his dead cap is about 19. So you're saving about $7-ish million if you release Marlon Humphrey. Is it worth trying the safety experiment and keeping Marlon on the roster? Again, Nate Wiggins is there. You have TJ Tampa, but with a new system coming in with Anthony Weaver and Jesse Minter, and obviously with Minter calling the plays and Weaver hopefully being able to help Marlon, does it give you more confidence knowing a new coaching staff is coming in that could maybe get more out of Marlon than what Zach Orr could?
Yes. But who are the defensive guys up front that's going to be helping out that secondary, a.k.a. Marlon Humphrey? Because if you got some horses up front, like we saw with the Houston Texans, like we saw with the Patriots, and like we saw with the now world champion Mike McDonald-led Seattle Seahawks, you can rush 4 guys and get to the quarterback. It makes life easy for your secondary. When you can't get to the quarterback, it makes it challenging. So you can say all of those things, and rightly so. It's the offseason. And yes, I know I kid as far as what your skill set is with analyzing it all. I appreciate it because no, it's significant. It's something you got to consider from a business standpoint, but you also got to consider it from, was he going to still be a liability? That's the thing that you kind of got to ask yourself when making these business decisions.
Well, and I want to dive more into Marlon in the sense of what you saw, because something that Rod mentioned in this clip is, having a lot left in the tank, but talking about foot speed and kind of like the progression of like, okay, yeah, it's probably not going to be the same as it was a couple years ago because that's the natural progression of anybody's life, and particularly talking about high level athletics. When you go through a bunch of wear and tear, you get older, and you, Q, and the sports performance and sports movement background, I guess, was there anything that encouraged you about the way that Marlon was moving out there? Or was it a lot more of a concern point for you in terms of like, getting juked out of his shoes on certain plays or not being able to keep up with certain guys? Like from a movement perspective, what did you personally see from Marlon in that aspect?
Yeah, so Marlon at the last game of the year, obviously I'm privy to my WJZ work. We went on our road trip out to Pittsburgh. We are on the field pregame. I'm on the field, not just sitting there fanboying, but I'm watching the guys. And for the most part, you're like, all right, let's just look at these guys. And it's just a habit of mine because of my sports performance background of watching movement. And you can see where some guys like, all right, Tavius Robinson, for example, he comes back and he's like out there. And I'm like, wow, you know, he's not looking as big as he was, like muscular wise. I'm like, hi, probably down an LB or two. However, wow, okay, his get off is looking really good. Huh, okay, whatever they thinking about Lamar's looking like he's all right. He's not looking like he's kind of, oh boy, look, oh, Zay is doing Zay type things as far as, okay, huh, yeah, I don't see 7 out here. Oh, wait, 7 ain't here. But from a bigger picture standpoint, when I looked at 44, I was like, you know what? I can see where he kind of like gauging himself. And what I mean by that is some veterans, when you have pregame warm-up, it's kind of like, you're getting your flow and groove, but you're not taking as many, aggressive movements. You already know the game, I was like, well, I just kind of filed that away. Well, in a key moment of the game when Pittsburgh needed to get off the field and you get the ball back for your offense, literally you could see where Marlon had a chance just to stuff. I don't know if it was Gainwell or a receiver, but just stuff him right there as soon as he turned around, make the play. I think it might have been Gainwell. And he just made the most stiffest of hips, sink your hips, buzz your feet, wrap up, tackle. He did the exact opposite. And I was like, oh boy, that looked like old age just settling in. Like, man, this is late in the game. You should be more than warmed up, or are you stiff and can't do it? And that's where that red flag comes in of where are we at? You are you there still as that upper tier guy, or have you lost it a bit? And then even in his post game comments, he himself was like, "Yeah, I'm disappointed in how I played," and as he was going on and giving a very honest self critique. Like, yeah, okay, then what my eyes saw, what he expressed were lining up. And that's where for Marlon, business decision wise, you got to kind of figure this thing out for yourself. I would say, is it a pay cut scenario where, hey, let's restructure that thing? I think maybe if you're talking pay cut and figuring it out from there, like that might be something in the mix.
Yeah, and again, for as wild as we know Marlon Humphrey can be on social media and some of the hot takes and whatever else he has to say, one of the things I really do appreciate about Marlon is that over the last couple of seasons, he's been one of the realest guys on the team in terms of his answers and really just putting it all out there and laying his emotions out there. So that's something I've appreciated with Marlon. There's a lot about natural ending points for certain. I think we got there with John Harbaugh in Baltimore, but I think it's an interesting conversation about, is that the situation for Marlon right now? And is it the situation with another really important guy that really means a lot to this team? So be sure to stay tuned. Plenty coming up on the show. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel. The Winter Games are officially here, and if you're anything like us, you're locking in for events you only get to see on the biggest stage every 4 years. And that's why following the Winter Games on FanDuel just makes sense, from medal counts to individual events to finding your angle on the sports you care about most. FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected to the action. The drama of curling matches that start slow and somehow get intense fast, speed skating races decided by inches, hockey games that feel different right from the opening face-off, even niche events become must-watch when you're fully locked in to the competition. FanDuel keeps the entire Olympic experience engaging from start to finish, and the Olympics has everything, and FanDuel has everything you need to be covered over the course of the entirety of it. The Winter Games are on, and there's no better way to follow them than with FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. Back here, Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher still here with you. Qadry Ismail with me as well. We're diving into Ravens football and conversation. Q, kind of continuing our conversation about Marlon. Do you think this is a natural endpoint for two sides? You also, I think, factor in a lot about the cap situation. You mentioned the business part of it, which I think is it's a real aspect of everything here when it comes to football. You save $7 million. But if they were to move on from Marlon again, how confident would you be, one, that they could replace the skill set, regardless of how people feel about how washed he is, for lack of a better word, or not, based off the guys who they already have? Again, like Wiggins is there, TJ Tampa. You have a couple of other intriguing young players. You could draft somebody there. Chidobe Awuzie is someone that they could potentially bring back if you're talking about Marlon at safety. You obviously have Kyle and Malaki in those spots based off of Jesse Minter's scheme. Would it work for Marlon to be there? Again, we saw this as a natural ending point for John Harbaugh and the Ravens. Just, it was time. Do you feel like it's time for Marlon, especially knowing that, like, look, if he likes Harbaugh and Harbaugh likes him and that relationship is all cool, he can maybe go over to New York and be a part of that team. He still, I think, has value in this league. I'm not saying he should retire tomorrow, but is it right for the Ravens to bring him back, knowing everything and all the circumstances that are on the table, or do you think it's probably time?
I think it is where you look at yourself in the mirror, you assess your body, the team is going to be assessing your play. If you're a player the caliber of Marlon, you give him the due respect of bringing him in, sitting him down, and talking situational football, talking how he matches up to your scheme. And if it's a good fit, cool. But the business side of it also, you're bringing him in and saying, yeah, but we also know here are some of the things that you can't do, and it doesn't match up to what we're paying you. Therefore, let's work on something where we can figure this thing out. And yeah, the dreaded pay cut. That's then going to be up to Marlon whether he wants to say, okay, cool, I'll do it, or no, I'll take my services elsewhere. And then that's where you will find your market value, whether or not it's high, low, whatever. The market is the market. And yes, it helps that you do have some coaches that already know you in other places. And in particular, your former head coach that you were part of his draft. So in that, can it work? Is it a scenario where his defensive coordinator is like, all right, cool, we're going to bring him in? Or is it a scenario where his defensive coordinator and John Harbaugh is like, nah, I really don't want that guy. And John's like, well, all right, cool. Because Marlon's not going to be playing special teams. So therefore, from a depth standpoint, what depth is there when you got a guy on a roster that's not contributing on special teams?
I think the reality, Q, is honestly just when a new coaching staff comes in, when an old coaching staff leaves, there are going to be certain players and certain positions that are valued more or less. One guy's a Harbaugh guy. That guy might not be a Minter guy. And the dynamic changes with that. So we'll see how it unfolds for Marlon. Another name, Q, and this is one that I very much so hope the Ravens bring back, is Tyler Linderbaum. And he is the top priority free agent for the Ravens now. Obviously, Lamar's situation, that takes top priority. But once you get that done, Linderbaum, you got to shift your attention and your focus there. And the reason that I continue to kind of hammer this point home is because there are going to be a lot of teams that are interested in Tyler Linderbaum if he hits the free agent market. Again, the center market right now, Creed Humphrey has the highest per year contract in the NFL at $18 million per season. I'm sure Tyler Linderbaum wants to surpass that, and I don't blame him for doing that and wanting that if that is the case. But you hear a lot of rumored interest potentially from the Giants with John Harbaugh, and now Clint Kubiak, who was talking with Q Myers over, Q does Locked On Raiders, and he's awesome. He was talking with Clint Kubiak, the new head coach of the Raiders, and was asked about characteristics an offensive lineman to execute his scheme correctly. And he said, quote, "Gotta be athletic and can't be so light that you can't pass pro. The most important thing is getting a really bright center that can ID fronts and get everybody on the same page. It all starts with him." So again, like who's a good center that's going to be on the free agent market? It's Tyler Linderbaum. What do the Raiders need? They need a center. So it's adding up to you that if Linderbaum, like my take is that if Linderbaum hits free agency, the Ravens will not bring him back. You need to get this done before free agency starts because there is going to be a lot of interest and some reports are already coming out, and it's going to be a lot more than just a couple teams that have been reported so far.
Well, I tell you what, it takes two to tango, and it also takes two teams to get you to negotiate. So two to tango means that last year Ronnie Stanley was in this situation, and Ronnie Stanley coming off a complete year, a great year, and he was sitting there saying, nah, I'm going to go ahead and let the Ravens two to tango. We're going to go ahead and get this deal done, and they got it done so he doesn't go to free agency. And he certainly could have gone to free agency with the way the tackle play was out on the league, and he would have got a boatload of money. In the bigger picture of it all as well, when you look at Tyler Linderbaum, Tyler has been durable. Tyler has only missed, what was it, one game, I think? And what he has done with making the line call and all the things work, except for his own admitted gaffe that turned into one of the greatest highlight plays of Lamar Jackson when they needed to score. And unfortunately, you had a guy coming off the edge and a guy coming right up the middle because Tyler called the wrong protection plan, but Lamar escaped it, stepped up and threw just a dot to Zay Flowers, and of course gets the touchdown, and now it's game on. With all that said, Tyler, if he wants to play and play with Lamar, all right, be more what y'all got. I can have you by the back of the hair and look you guys all in the eye and be like, what do y'all want to do? I want to get paid. Or he could be like, well, all right, I'll take a somewhat team-friendly deal and let it ride and let it roll. Or he could be like, nah, I'm just going to go out there on the market. And you better hope to the high heavens that there's another free agent out there that's willing to talk and work, and or there's some young guy that is a great prospect that doesn't have a shoulder issue and won't miss OTAs and, doesn't have some injury situation that you're going to have to, combat, then go ahead and bring him in. So there are some different scenarios that are going to go on, but I think the bottom line is Tyler Linderbaum has all the control.
Now, Lamar posted an interesting video on his Instagram story. It was a video of him taking a snap from Tyler Linderbaum, warming up, and then the two high-fiving, getting ready for the game, and everyone's speculating, okay, could this mean that Linderbaum or Lamar or both of those extensions are done? I mean, those are your two top priorities for me, Q. I mean, how big would it be if you can get that done back to back and then focus on maybe bringing in a couple of other guys on extensions like a Charlie Kolar or getting some other guys done before you hit free agency to get yourself as far ahead of the game as you can?
Yeah, critical. Everything is about timing. Everything is about momentum because there's he got him signed? He got signed? Oh, okay. So if they got signed, then that means I'm up next. Oh, my agent's talking right now, bro. Like, we're about to get this done. So yes, optics, momentum, communication, starting off on the right foot, new regime, new coach, new everything. Let's go. Everything matters when it comes down to the optics of free agency.
Yeah, it's a huge deal. So, hey, maybe that means something. Maybe it doesn't. I mean, I'm hoping it does. But, of course, we read into everything on social media nowadays. So I'm going to choose to say that it means something. But, of course, who actually knows if it does or not? But, Q, I appreciate you hopping on. Thanks so much for joining me on the way out. Be sure to tell people where they can find you and what you're working on.
Yeah, man, it's all about missile training at missiletraining.com, where we talk about your human movement and sports performance training. If you want to go ahead and up the ante, give yourself an opportunity to make your ball club, to move better, to move more explosive, missiletraining.com. Doesn't matter the age. I have some young bucks that are in there now. Those dudes are getting it done, looking great. And I also have some guys prepping for their pro days, as well as some collegiates that they are preparing for their sports too. Team training, individual training, doesn't matter. missiletraining.com. You can interact with me there. And then, of course, when it comes down to it, it's all about, yes, WJZ, where I'm on TV for my Purple pregame show, as well as going in every now and then and filling in for Tori Smith on our other Purple shows. But Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher and I, each and every week, breaking it down with you here. But then you also get fancy with the spices because you get us twice with Sam and Joko, Mondays and Wednesdays on our Locked On Ravens squad show. All your Raven needs in one location.
Absolutely. Q has a lot going on and he is good at what he does. So be sure you go check it out. Support the links in the description down below. Q, I appreciate you again. And thank you to everybody who watched and listened today to Locked On Ravens. Coming up tonight, we will have the squad show 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. And then we'll be back with regularly scheduled programming with another edition of the show tomorrow. So be sure to stay tuned. Hit the like and subscribe button on the way out in video form and audio form. And I'll see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.